Hey, my name is Alex Vanover from the DIY Alex YouTube channel. But today, here on the CRAFTY.net YouTube channel, I'm going to teach you how to sublimate a coffee mug using the Cricut Mug Press. Now, I am using the color-changing sublimation mugs from 143 Vinyl, which just makes this project even cooler. But remember that if you're a CRAFTY.net member, you get a 10% off discount code to 143 Vinyl. So if you want to grab this exact same blank and make this project just like me, you can grab yours for a discount on 143 Vinyl. Now let's get crafty. So in order to create our sublimation mug, of course we're going to come to our very favorite file website, CRAFTY.net, to find the perfect files to make our project. So I'm going to begin by going to the Smart Search bar and typing in the search terms sublimation mug, and then pressing search to see what beautiful things CRAFTY.net has for us. So as we scroll down, the first thing that we want to look for is a template that's going to fit the type of mug that we are going to work with. So in this case, I'm going to be working with a color-changing sublimation mug from 143 Vinyl. And as you can see on this page, there are a couple different templates that I have to work with. Now this is either an 11 or a 12 ounce mug. I can't remember exactly what size it is. So I see that two of these different templates could possibly work for me. I could use the generic 11 ounce, 12 ounce, or I could use the Cricut 12 ounce small mug template. Now, when I tested both of these files, what I found is that the Cricut mug template is a little bit shorter and a little bit taller, whereas this mug template is a little bit longer, but a little bit shorter. Now, after measuring my mug and keeping in mind that I'm going to be using the Cricut Mug Press for this project, I'm going to use the Cricut 12 ounce small mug template. Because if you'll recall, or if you've ever worked with the Cricut Mug Press before, then you know that the mug press does not actually go all the way to the handle with the way that it wraps around the mug. So I want my design to be a little bit shorter to make sure that there's no ghosting or anything around the edges. So once I have a template chosen, then I'll come down to the one-click download button. And in the drop-down menu, I'm going to choose that I'd like an SVG type file for this because I'm going to upload it into Cricut Design Space, and that is my preferred file type. So I'll choose download. And then once this is finished downloading, I'm going to go back to the search results to try to find a design that I really like and that I want to use on my mug. And as you can see here, some other templates. So you have tons of great options when it comes to mug templates from Crafty. Ooh, and then I'm gonna scroll down and I think I'm gonna use this kindness is free, sprinkle it on everything because I love that sentiment and I think that these little dots are gonna look so cute around the bottom of my mug. So then once I have my design chosen, I'm going to go back to the one-click download, and for this file, I'm gonna choose a PNG type file. Now, typically a PDF type file would be my first choice for sublimation. However, I'm going to be uploading this into Cricut Design Space so that I can size the SVG file with the template accordingly. And Cricut Design Space does not upload PDF type files. So I'm going to choose a PNG type file, which would be my second choice, and click download. Then once this is downloaded, I'll go into Cricut Design Space. And in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, I'll choose upload. And then I'm going to upload the image using the upload image button here. And I'll go into my downloads and find both of my templates. So first I'll upload the mug template and then choose open and then the green upload button. And then I'll go back and repeat the process and grab the PNG file for the kindness is free. So since this is a PNG type file, it's going to take me through a slightly different upload process. And anytime that I upload a PNG type file, I always choose it as complex and then click the green continue button. Then when I get here, I can already see the checkered background, so I don't have to remove any background. That's the benefit of using PNG type files. Then I'll click apply and continue. Next, I definitely want to choose that this is a print then cut image because I'm going to be using my printer for this. Anytime you're working with sublimation, you always want to upload these files as print then cut type files. Then I'll click the green upload button. And once both files are uploaded into my Cricut Design Space, then I'll select each of them and then choose the green Add to Canvas button in the lower right-hand corner. Then once I have them both uploaded onto my canvas, next I need to work with some sizing. So the first thing I'm going to do is adjust the size of the kindness is free file. As you can see here, I have a little triangle, like a caution triangle in my layers panel. And what that means is my image is too large for print and cut. So I'm going to click out of both files so that neither of them are selected. Then I'm going to go to the layers panel and choose the Kindness is Free file. And I'm just going to size it to 8 inches to make it a little bit smaller and more manageable. But before we size this file exactly to my mug, I want to talk about this template a little bit. The reason that I like to use the SVG version of these templates is because then I can hide certain parts of my file and still be able to work with them separately. So that's why I like to use the SVG version of the mug template files. And I really love how it shows us the way that this design right here is going to be centered on the left side. This is where the center of the mug is going to be, and here's where the center of the right-hand side of the mug is going to be. So I think these mug templates are so helpful in creating sublimation designs. Now, I'm gonna size my Kindness is Free file approximately to work on this template, but I wanna talk also about how I came to this conclusion. So when I was testing this project before I recorded this for all of you, I did go ahead and print out the Kindness is Free file, the print and cut file, a couple of times on regular printer paper before I printed it out of my sublimation printer. And the reason I did this is because I wasn't exactly sure what size I needed to make it for my specific mug. So instead of wasting sublimation ink, I used regular printer ink and tried out a couple of different sizes to find out exactly what would work. Now again, if you're using the 143 vinyl color changing sublimation mugs, then this should work for you as well. But if you're not using that mug, I do encourage you to do a couple of test prints to make sure you have the right size before you start printing it out on sublimation paper on your sublimation printer. So what I found with my particular mug is that the width of this mug template is absolutely perfect, but I found that the height was a little bit high for my mug. So I'm gonna keep the width the same as the template, which is currently about 8.7 inches wide. But in order to adjust the height, I'm going to unclick the lock in the lower left-hand corner, and I'm gonna change the height to about 3.55 inches high, and then choose enter. So once I have my design sized at 3.55 inches, I found that that was the perfect size for taking up most of the mug, but not going all the way to the very top. Because the only risk that you have if you go all the way to the very top is that you may get some ghosting around the top edges. So I tend to err on the side of caution there and take the design a little bit lower than the top lip. Then before we proceed through our project, we need to utilize the layers panel here on the right-hand side, and we need to click the eyeball in order to hide our template. We don't need to print out our template. The only thing we need to print is the Kindness is Free file. So once we have that hidden, next we can click the green Make It button to proceed through our project. Now remember, anytime that you are making a sublimation project, you must always mirror your files. And this is so that we can put it with the ink side to the blank, but it still reads correctly. So you can either do this through your printer settings, or if you're working through Cricut Design Space like I am, then I can just click the mirror button, and that's going to put everything backwards for me. Then I can click the green Continue button. And once my Cricut Maker 3 connects, next I can go ahead and begin the printing process. And I'm actually not going to be using my Cricut Maker 3 in this project. I'm just going to be cutting the design apart using a paper trimmer. So the only function I'm really interested in here with Design Space is the actual printing function. So I'm going to start by clicking the green Send to Printer button. And then I can change around some settings. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck the bleed button. Since I'm not going to be cutting around the design, I don't need an extra bleed. But I am going to turn on the Use System dialog button. Then when I click the green Print button, it's not actually going to print just yet. It's going to open up my system dialog box so that I can choose all of the correct settings. And I'm going to be printing from my Epson ST4000, which is my sublimation printer that has StarCraft sublimation ink in it. Then once I have the correct printer chosen, next I can go down and choose Preferences to make a few adjustments to my printer settings. And paper type, I always like to change paper type to Premium Presentation Paper Matte whenever I'm working with StarCraft sublimation paper, because I just find that that gives me a really solid quality print. The other setting that I want to change is I want to change the quality from standard to high. This is going to give us a much more pigmented print than it normally would. Then once I have those two settings changed, I'll go ahead and click OK. And next I'll go over to my printer and load in my sublimation paper and get all of that ready to go. Then when I'm ready to print, I can come back to my computer and press print. So once the project is set up in Cricut Design Space, next it's time to set up our sublimation printer. So all we need to do is simply insert sublimation paper into the paper cassette. And then when we close the paper cassette, we need to confirm the printer's settings. And since I already have the paper set to premium presentation paper matte on the printer, all I'm going to do is press confirm. And then I'll go back to my computer and press print. Once your sublimation design has been printed, next you can move over to your Cricut Mug Press to begin sublimating. So the next thing that we need to do after our sublimation design is printed on our sublimation printer is remove the automatic black registration mark that Cricut Design Space leaves behind. You can do this using a pair of scissors if you'd like, but I like to use a paper trimmer because I personally am super sloppy with scissors and I like to have nice, clean, straight lines. So I'm just gonna pull the ruler out, and one really important key to getting straight lines on a paper trimmer is keeping the paper square with this top edge. As long as it's pushed at the top here and this edge is straight, we should get nice, clean cut designs. So not only am I gonna remove the registration mark, but I'm also gonna cut as close as I can to my sublimation design without actually cutting any of it off. So I think that looks pretty good. Then I'm just gonna use my little slider to cut off this whole side. Then I'm just gonna repeat the process with all the other sides of the design. Remember when trimming this that you can't ever add anything back to your design, but you can always cut more away. So if you have to go in small increments to make sure you don't cut anything off, feel free to do that. And I personally think that looks pretty good. So now let's prepare our mug for sublimation. So the first step to preparing our mug for sublimation is to take a clean lint roller and lint roll the outside of our mug to remove any dust or dirt that may be remaining on the mug after having it sit on my shelf for quite a while. And then once that step is complete, next we can line up our sublimation design around the outside of our mug and tape it in place. So this is the exact reason why we had to mirror it, so that when we flip it over, if you guys can kind of see in the light through my sublimation paper, it reads correctly. So then I'm just gonna try to line it up as evenly as I can around the outside of the mug. And the tricky part here is to get it even on both sides of the handle. But keep in mind that I'm trying not to touch the mug all by itself without any gloves on, because any oils or lotion or any residue from my hand soap could get on my mug and mess it up before I sublimate it. So I'm trying just to touch the handle and areas that are not going to be sublimated. So then once I have it lined up evenly on either side of the handle, next I'm gonna try to line up the bottom the best I can with the bottom of the mug and make sure that is nice and even. And then once I feel like it is, I need to tape it in place using heat resistant tape. So I first like to tape the edges here at the handle. And once I have one side taped, I wanna make sure that I have my sublimation paper pulled nice and tight, but I also can see some paper residue sitting here on my mug. So don't be afraid to re-lint roll if you're unsure if your mug is completely clean. And then I can tape this side. Next, I'm gonna put a couple pieces of tape around the bottom rim and the top rim just to make sure that the design stays in place. Some people have differing opinions on how much they tape. I am not a crazy excessive over taper, but some people like to tape literally the entire edge. So I would just encourage you to try out all different kinds of methods and continue using what you feel works best for you. Now we'll tape around the top rim as well. Something else that you want to be mindful of is to make sure that your design is right side up with the mug. I have seen many creators accidentally sublimate their design upside down on the wrong side of their mug. So make sure that when you can see through the paper, you know which side is which and that the correct side is facing up towards the opening of the mug. I can't always do this, but I also like to avoid taping directly over where the ink needs to sit on my mug and actually sublimate. That way the pressure stays nice and even with the areas that I've taped. So what I like to do to protect the inside of my mug press from any blowout of ink is to use some butcher paper, and I like to double layer it. This just makes it a lot faster because I can cut one really nice wide piece of butcher paper, and then I can fold it in half like this so that I have two layers already. And then I'll measure it around my mug and trim it down to be the right size. But while we're finishing up this step, I'm also going to start preheating my Cricut Mug Press. And in order to preheat the Cricut Mug Press, all you need to do is press the power button, and then when it turns orange, you'll know that it's going to begin preheating. So now that I have this cut in half, I can lay it around my mug and figure out the width of how wide it needs to be. I'll make a little mark here with my scissors, and then I'll trim it down to size. I have a little bit more butcher paper than I need, so I'm gonna make one more trim. I'm gonna try to cover as much sublimation paper as I have on my mug, but I don't want my mug to end up being too bulky so that I don't mess up the pressure on the mug as it's sublimating. So that's about right, as all of my butcher paper covers over my sublimation paper. Then I'll just trim it to height of my mug. And once the butcher paper is approximately the right size, I can begin taping it in place. Now I definitely want the butcher paper to line up perfectly at the bottom of the mug, but I'm not gonna worry about the top edge being perfect because my design does not wrap around the top edge. I don't worry too much about having it the perfect height. I'm more concerned with lining it up around the bottom and it covering all of my butcher paper, or excuse me, all my sublimation paper in this direction. And again, with the butcher paper, you do want it to be nice and taut. So I do like to tape the first side next to the handle, and then I'll take the other side and pull it good and tight and bring it around so that I don't have any loose spots in my butcher paper. That's gonna involve one more trim just to make sure it's not too wide. And then I'm not gonna worry about the top edge like I said because it doesn't fit exactly. So I'm not gonna put any tape on the top edge. It's just around the handle and around the bottom. Now that my Cricut Mug Press has a green light over the power button, now I know it's ready to sublimate. So in order to add the mug, all I'm going to do is simply lower it into the chamber, and I'm gonna make sure that this edge is covered by the Cricut Mug Press so that there's no sublimation paper sticking out on this side. And then when I push down the lever, the other side of the sublimation paper will be covered, so I know the entire design will be sublimated correctly. Once I lower the lever on my Cricut Mug Press, you'll see the lights begin on the left-hand side, and then they'll progressively add more as it goes throughout the sublimation process. That's because the Cricut Mug Press automatically detects time and temperature for your sublimation mug, so you don't have to enter anything. And as these lights progressively light up, we'll know that it's further along in the sublimation process. Then we'll know that it's finished sublimating when the lights blink and the mug press makes a little bit of noise. And once all the lights are lit up and blinking, we know that our mug is finished. So in order to remove the mug, we just need to open up the lever. And then we're very carefully going to grab the handle of the mug, pull it out of the chamber, and sit it on an easy press mat or some kind of like trivet or silicone pad so that you're not sitting it directly on your table because it's going to be very hot. Once you have the mug sitting on the easy press mat, then you have two different options for what you can do next. The first option is for you to allow the mug to cool completely before you remove the butcher paper and the sublimation paper to see the design. And the sublimation process is completely done, so it's certainly not required that you allow it to cool completely. Your second option, which is for impatient crafters like me, and that's to use heat-resistant gloves and a pair of tweezers to remove all the butcher paper and the sublimation paper in order to see the design right away. So here are the heat-resistant gloves that I'm going to be wearing, and I'm only going to use it on the hand that's actually holding the mug. Then I'm going to use a pair of my stab and grab tweezers from 143 Vinyl to carefully pull everything away and not burn myself, but I cannot wait to see how this design looks. And so I want to rip off this paper as soon as I can. And I don't know how well you can see that, but you can faintly see the design on the butcher paper, which is exactly why we use it, so that we don't get any residual ink in our Cricut Mug Press. Oh my gosh, you guys. Look how bright the colors are already. I'm just gonna be super careful with my stab and grab tweezers not to scratch up my mug or my design since they are super sharp. Oh my goodness. You guys, I cannot believe how beautiful and vibrant these colors are. Oh my gosh. Let me grab my other glove and I'll show you the full design. You guys, Check out how cute this mug turned out. The colors are so bright and beautiful and vivid, and I think this is gonna be such a fun surprise every time I drink my hot coffee out of this mug, because I'll be able to reveal this super cute design. If you're new to the CRAFTY.net YouTube channel, I would love it if you consider subscribing. We are bringing you brand new craft tutorials every single week on this channel, and I really wouldn't want you to miss out. If you learned something in this video, be sure to give it a like and comment below if you want to see more sublimation crafts here on the CRAFTY.net YouTube channel. Stay crafty.